Okay, Jijo, we're live.
You're live, guys. Jijo, do the honors.
Welcome. I don't know. I think this session would be uh, in which case everybody will get to know the story in just a week's time. But I think this is largely to calm down or maybe get a sense in terms of
There is
what the
no
day was.
viewers as yet.
Interesting. People
Okay,
would have
now there
thought
are.
it's like it's done enough.
Okay, I think let me start off this one, guys. Ravi and Jijo are also there. I guess GP and Shivku will also join us soon. Cat 22 is done and dusted finally. Uh, I know there are too many reactions each one of them is coming up with. Verbal was difficult, DI was atrocious, quant was lengthy or boring, slot 1 was easier, slot 3 was the toughest, whatever that may be the comments that you have. What we will bring to you now is a kind of a sense of what should you expect in this cat. Somewhere around the 7th, 8th of this December, you will get the actual answer keys. Probably by the first week of Jan, maybe worst case, second week, you will also get the actual percentiles. But much before that, there are many things that you need to do. Assess your broadly overall marks that you can get. Preparation for other exams like IFT, ZAT, NMAT, if some of you are writing, or SNAP, tests, whatever. And more importantly, also to prepare for your group discussions, or most importantly, WAT and the personal interviews. So all these and more in this session. I'll start with Jijo. He has taken slot 2, Ravi has taken slot 1, and I have taken slot 3. Together in that sense, all of us have something to say. Each of us will probably say that ours was the toughest. But let's start with the slot 1 guy, Ravi, who has done this, and take us through the analysis as well as the presentation. Ravi, all yours.
Yeah, I told you, Aksar, what happened with me today. My day started with a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jijo, my slot was at 8:30. I woke up at 7:45. Luckily, my center is in a 20-meter or 20-minute vicinity from my home. I just rushed. एकदम मतलब अब मैं 6 बजे से 6:30 तक का हर 5 मिनट का अलार्म लगा के सोया था और इतनी गहरी नींद मैं सीधा 7:45 को उठा and I rushed and when I went through the instructions in the instructions itself it was clearly mentioned that DILR every set there will be 4 sets of 5 questions each and each set of question is a question of is a group of 5 questions and we are saying every everything is like every passage is 4 questions so वो देख के मेरे को थोड़ा चिल लगा बट आई मिस्ड आउट ऑन वन वेरी सिंपल इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग कि जब 2 4 और 2 6 थे DILR में when there were 4 question sets and 2 6 question sets typically one of the 4 question sets would be very easy. What happened today with me in DILR is that this was the first time I felt uncomfortable in DILR because none of the sets were easy to solve, none of the sets were easy to leave either. All the questions equally important, all the sets equally important, all the sets equally lengthy is what I found in slot 1. While one odd set was there, which was up for grabs, but that's what happened with me. So in VRC, I felt it was more or less similar to what I have been facing in the last 3-4 years of CAT. The reason is pretty simple, Jijo, Aks and Shivku, that VRC में समझता नहीं है ना कि सही कर रहे हो कि गलत कर रहे हो बस कॉन्फिडेंस से करते हो so that is why I felt it was not very difficult to read at least the passages but the questions were very tricky and इधर उधर घुमा के the questions दे दिया था जिसके वजह से there was a little discomfort in RCs while the VA part was pretty much straightforward. So overall I would say in the first slot if you look at it in the first slot if you look at it the 4 RCs that were there all the 4 RCs were manageable in terms of reading while one of the RCs only the critical theory of technology the third RC was the only one which was difficult to read also not difficult to read as such there were नो वर्ड्स लाइक एपिफेनोमेनन लाइक व्हाट अपीयर्ड इन कैट 2020, ऐसा कोई भयंकर वर्ड्स नहीं थे. ऑल द वर्ड्स वर नोन, सिंपल वोकैबुलरी, बट कहना क्या चाहता है वो नहीं समझ में आ रहा था. सो दैट क्रिटिकल थियरी ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी, दैट वाज द ओनली पैसेज that I guess students would also have found a little bit difficult to comprehend. While the questions in that were a little straightforward, but the others which were easy to read, the questions were a little complicated in that sense. So, about in these 16 questions, about getting 8 to 10 questions was the 8 to 10 questions were manageable if for someone who has spent time on all four RCs. So people who go into the paper with a strategy saying कि मैं तीन ही आरसी करूंगा, for those kind of people this may look a little more, for those kind of people probably only 6 to 8 questions out of the 12 questions of RCs would have been possible. And when you go to verbal ability, first of all मेरे को I felt very happy looking at the two questions which were not odd sentence parajumbles, because that is where that has been my point personally कि parajumble तो बन जाता है, odd sentence निकाल नहीं पाता. But I think those two questions of para completion, at least at that time I felt very confident, because उसमें ऐसा as such the difficult the passage given or the sentence given was not difficult to comprehend. It's only that you had the multiple places possible lag raha tha, but it is something that I felt more comfortable as compared to an odd sentence parajumble. So I feel even if there is one less MCQ in this paper, two less non MCQs in this paper, but a replacement of odd sentence parajumbles with para completion would more or less bring the game to the same point where it was last year. However, the RC's part of it was probably a couple of questions tougher. That is why what I think of the 99th percentile in VRC would be around 38 to 40 marks instead of what was 43 to 45 marks last year. A couple of questions tougher than last year is what I felt for VRC. That brings us to VRC slot 2, Jijo.
Yep. So obviously before entering slot two, I think many, almost at least in the groups, everybody knew that odd sentence was not there. There was paragraph completion. I was like, what paragraph completion? The paragraph completion that I thought was a paragraph completion that used to be once upon a time in the cat with last sentence deleted. Okay. So whatever was the paragraph completion that saw in the paper was a new paragraph completion, which is like trying to insert. I don't know. It has to be sentence insertion. I don't know what name you have to call. Anyways, so going with the VRC section of slot number 2. So with respect to the passages, I think the passages was so while it mentioned easy, moderate and stuff, I think passages were kind of easy to read. So the first passage on musicking was one word, by the way. I think that's a term that the author has used, that people can whatever the inherent capability of uh, appreciating and knowing and having the knowledge of music. I think musicking should be actually one word. That passage was I think the musicking and the social institution passages, the only problem that could have happened is there are words, the philosophy as a word was mentioned in the first was a sentence of the paragraph, that usually the moment people see the word philosophy, they get psyched out. So passage was easy to read. The passage in Octopus actually was fine to read, but just that there were a lot many words that was thrown. It's sounded like too many fact, but the questions were also very manageable. And the last problem, or engineering problem, was very woke passage. The engineer is supposed to be woke. That's what the passage was talking about. By the time you read the third paragraph, you know, it's this passage is, I know the story. So in terms of that, I believe it was kind of okay to read. But when it comes to questions, I believe that what I felt with respect to the question, something that I felt in the previous year's CAT, and probably that will be the case in every single of the slots, is that there were a couple of questions which were manageable. The one question, the options were you have to make that call whether you want to just skip the question and move to the next one. So let's say somebody who's looking at three passages, will have an opportunity to probably get about net 6 questions correct or 7 questions correct. Those of you looking at all the 4 passages, yes, if they get stuck in some of the question, they may not have time to go and look at the VA section. So whatever strategy that people do during the mock test, here there might be some changes that would happen. But by and large, if you look at the passages, it was manageable, and I believe that every passage had a couple of questions that was manageable. So it's about so similar to probably what we see in the last 2 3 years. When it comes to VA, the I think the paragraph completion, paragraph jumble questions, out of the three, I think two were I felt was straightforward. One would have been slightly tricky. Paragraph summary, the options were manageable, not so painful, though the passage was were slightly painful to read. But if you understand the crux of it, I think the option was easy to eliminate. The paragraph completion question, by the way, was, even though it was new, I think this was handleable, because I remember one paragraph number question, the sentence that was given was started with the pronoun he, and there is only one gentleman's name that was written in the passage, and then it has to come after that person. And so overall, my feeling is that out of these 8 questions, the people would be looking at about 4 to 5, and out of those, other one maybe about 8, about 12, 36, should be about 97, that thereabout. So I would believe that my gut feeling is that the last year was 42 to 45. That scaling up also happened because I believe the slot number 3, your slot, I believe last year, तेरा slot था ना? Uh,
हाँ, मेरा
uh,
था slot 3,
uh,
which was easy
uh,
last
so,
year.
so unfortunately here, I think that kind of pushed the scaled up the score to that particular level. But I think that from whatever discussion that I had, but otherwise other 3 passages were very similar to this only in this range. So my general feeling is that it will be across the board. Will probably be 1 or 2 questions less in terms of the percentile and score distribution. Thereby, instead of what you're saying about 45 being the 99 percentile, it's likely going to be 40, 42. Is a general sense that I have at sort of this point in time.
Right. Slot 3 asks Shivku.
Aks, you want to take it?
Yeah, you're on mute, asks.
I think it is very similar to both slot 1 and slot 2 as far as the RC was concerned. The sociology school, social disorientation, which came in, or the it is Orientalism and the way the West think about India, or even the software development. I think these three were very, very straightforward, easy passages to read, and the questions, of course, we'll come back to. The biotechnology one, bioengineering one, was a little tricky to read, but I don't think the questions were very difficult in that sense. What made this difficult, or like we've been discussing throughout the day, is the double negatives in the questions. So to make the question difficult, I think somewhere the IIM has started this template of making the question difficult, not the choices interesting or tricky. I think that is where it lost it out. But I feel about 8, 9, or even 10 questions correct out of 16, if somebody has done all 16. If somebody has done only 3, that is 12, getting something like 7 or 8 out of that 12 also is very much possible. As far as verbal ability is concerned, once again, I feel that I agree with Ravi. The odd sentence ones were always tricky questions. After all the things you find them, they are not perfect. But this particular thing, the para completion, despite having 4 blanks and only one of them is the correct completion, was, to my mind, easy. Para jumbles, at least one of them was straightforward, I felt, and a couple of them also possibly doable. More importantly, the para summary, 2 out of 3 were possible. If I keep referring back to what Jijo keeps saying all the time about VARC, if you can given correct time for your verbal, that's about 10-12 minutes, do almost all the 8. Even if you get 5 correct and 3 wrong, you're talking about getting 12 marks there. And then now you get a RC made 10 correct, 6 wrong, 8 correct, 6 wrong, or whatever. you are automatically getting into the 35, 36s to get a comfortable 96, 97, 98 percentile. Two more corrects, you are straight away the 43, 44, where it will be beyond the 99 plus percentile. That's my take on VRC for the slot 3.
So I think where VRC, the game of VRC might have changed as compared to the last year across the three slots is like, I have a habit when I go to a paper of VRC, I look for passages which are like e-commerce wala passage which came in 2020, and snails wala passage which came in 2019, and also which are thoda both fact based questions or something that is pretty much straightforward in the questions. मैं इसमें गया पेपर में देखा, there was a question Jijo literally which said all of the following if false will contradict what the author wants to say except. मैं बोला ये क्या है रे, all of the
अपना
following if
अपना
contradict.
CDC में ऐसा ही क्वेश्चन था, डबल नेगेटिव.
Right, I think that the questions, the way the questions were made was as if someone was trying to take a personal grudge on me when I looked at the RCs, but otherwise the passages were readable, manageable across all the three slots is what it comes out to be. So overall, I guess all my friends, we feel that as compared to the last year in all the three slots, there may be a dip of a question or two when it comes to the different percentile levels for VRC this year. So that brings us to DILR. So in the morning when I was doing the analysis, I felt that one question was logically incorrect, but then later I realized that there was one very simple point given in the first line of the setup. Jijo, remember we keep telling the students ki yaar, when you read the question, read it slowly, padho, aram se padho. Even the setup is very, very important, not only the additional data points. There was something mentioned in the very first line of the passage, and I kind of ignored it. And that is what cost me the entire first set of tokens. Otherwise, token wala set, now that I recall of it, could have been one set which most of us could have solved in the paper, and the university team football set was also there up for grabs. So basically, there were, if you solve tokens or university exam team, let us consider that people would have solved at least one out of these two. However, the other two questions were, not pretty much straightforward. I would say they were not a straight reject questions also. So if you look at the question set that was metro lines, if you look at the set that was metro lines and network wala jo set tha in this paper, on the outset you would feel that okay, this is something that we can do, but once you start doing it, it starts troubling you, because there are too many things to consider and too many minute details to keep in mind. 1 minute 2 minutes 1 minute 2 minute ऐसे जोड़ते जाना है, और वो स्क्रीन पे ऐसे there are 19 dots on the screen पे आपको गिनना है कि वो 19 dots है. So that is where it will become a little that is where that metro line set is a set which if you give 15 to 20 15 to 18 minutes into up, you give yourself to that set, you should get all the questions there. Otherwise, probably getting the first two questions out of the set was not very difficult. So I would say an excellent student would have been able to uh, navigate through two complete sets and one half set. An excellent student, that would be a 99.5ish. So where my gut feeling is about 10 questions in this paper should be able to very comfortably land you in that 99th percentile zone. 10 questions net correct, so about 28 to 30 marks is what I feel the 99th percentile will be, while the other lower percentiles I feel will remain very close to what it was in the in CAT 2021, because getting that start, I mean getting that one set wrong, correct was not really difficult in the paper. The only thing that I'm a little upset with is with this paper that Akshay is also saying here, and some of them were also saying in slot 3 का analysis, is slot 2 में दिया, slot 3 में दिया, इसमें हम slot 1 में कोई दिया ही नहीं दिया. मतलब वो होता है ना, वो एक बार ग्राफ जो जिसको देख के ऐसे कलर वाला, हाँ आंसर दिख रहा है, हाँ 2 क्वेश्चन तो बन जाएंगे वाला।
ठीक से नहीं देखा होगा यार तुम लोगों ने. Let me also tell you before. Of course, I'm sorry, Jijo. I'm jumping to slot three. Despite the bar graph which was given, and Shivku will bear testimony to this. And I've now suddenly, I mean, in the last couple of hours, spoken to so many students. Many of them miss the DI set. Many of them miss the DI set.
There I agree with GP. I mean, if you're not using the question paper view, you are likely to leave it. And thankfully for me, that was the first set. तो वो 7-10 मिनट में हो गया वो, right? And I think if for somebody, if what had it that been the last set, I think that decision making also would have been a little probably tougher.
Yeah, I think the game got back to that decision making, going through all the 4 sets and deciding कौन सा करना है कि नहीं, because all the 4 sets were equal in weightage this year. So I think the game has come back to selecting what you want to solve. So slot 2, Vijo.
Yeah, so एक तो मुझे one thing I don't understand is that they have decided to make some changes to the paper, right? And decided not to tell anyone. Slot 3 people came to know. Slot 1 is like, this is crazy. If you are trying to, and they gave some sample papers for God knows why. It's not that it's going to make a huge amount of difference. It was not a minor thing, but still, it was like what's new sort of a situation for the slot number one people, and with what I hear with respect to DLR, that's the case. And the second thing is that they eventually decided to go with 4 DLR with 5 questions each. When we had the 60 minute paper, there were 8 DLR sets. When it comes to a 40 paper, and logically should have been 5 into 4 rather than 4 into 5. But they went to 4 into 5. And these 4 sets are probably the sets that you will leave when you had 8 sets. So that's a kind of that was a kind of a story. So when I look at this DLR in slot number 2, the set on revenue and cost at these two graph, which has got colorful graph and looks very deadly and dangerous, but the numbers were very simple and straightforward, and it's like simple subtraction. You would have got some 3 questions. So anyone who missed the first that set on revenue and cost would have lost the game, because the rest of them was painful. There was a set on the cosmetic item. First of all, it took me 2 to 3 minutes to just to decide, अच्छा ये set theory नहीं है. It's not not a set theory. Initially, I was trying to figure out what set to go with. It was looking very set theory, but then it was very demarcated very neatly, and it required a little bit of thinking in terms of how do I represent this data. That was the kind of pain. And then you had this diagram with 4 destinations, one warehouse in middle, and some probability of it was, and that every single question needed extra bit of work. And the last question, if you make some small error in the beginning, which is very possible, on the salesman question, you end up getting the rest of the questions wrong, given the fact that each of those questions had uh, couple of questions which is which was also non MCQ. You never know whether you're on the right direction as well. So overall, what I felt was I think that 3 to 4 questions, even for example in the revenue cost, people will get about 3 questions neatly. Other 2 questions require a little bit of work. In the same way, if somebody had the cosmetic item sales, again 3 questions, 2 would have been painful. So uh, everywhere uh, everywhere when I look at the 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 thing is that at the end of the day, what my feeling was, people would have felt betrayed by DLR. That would have that's probably what would have happened. But therefore, overall, last year at least we were having discussion. I remember last year when we were having this discussion, we were discussing in slot one there were 2 sets easy, one moderate, one difficult. Slot two, one easy, two moderate, one difficult. Slot three, it's here more discussion is acha, difficult, manageable. difficult, manageable. So I think that again across the three set, I think DLR set what I hear from the students is that everybody said that their slot was tough. That's what everybody felt in DLR. So like what you're saying, Ravi, that the percentile, I think beyond crossing three sets will be painful. So 99 percentile would be probably about 2 to 3 questions less than what it was last year. That's that would be my take. 2 questions, 3 questions maybe. I would not be surprised even if it's 3 questions less than last year. 99.5, 99.7 will be high, and the lower one will remain more or less the same. So that's my take.
Yeah. वो जो diagram 4 destination था, that was the traveling salesman problem.
No. It was
No.
warehouse.
Yeah.
Oh, warehouse in the middle. That was, let's say, yeah, nice. We can solve it later.
Slot 3. Shipku.
Slot 3, I think anybody who's done more than 2 sets, I mean, is done a good job. I think the first one, the blue and pink male female graph, I mean, it depends on where that graph appeared in your test. For me, it was the first set. For GP, it was the last set, I think. I don't know, Aks, where was it for you?
Which one? The first,
The male female, this one?
that is third for me.
Third, right? So I think because it was the first set for me, I found it, um, and I always look at this in the question paper view. So it didn't even strike me कि अच्छा, scrolling is a problem and all of that. That thought never occurred to me. That's something that I'm hearing from a lot of people. Acha, you have to scroll up and down, I have to scroll left and right. So a lot of people decide to leave it. For me, that was a very obvious thing. So depending on whether you selected it as the first one. So if since I did it as a first, in my first 10 minutes, I was down with one question, one set completely. So that kind of relieves the little bit of stress. And then there are two other sets. I mean, one of them is possible. I was like uh, feeling that it would be only the really good people who would probably be able to do 2 sets out of the remaining 3 sets. So 15, I think, will be a exceptionally good attempt. Exceptionally good attempt. A good attempt would be something like 10. Very good attempt. I would say that's a very good attempt. Anything beyond 10 is you take it as a bonus. 12. Some of you would have done some 12, 13 kind of a questions, but I think beyond 15 it would have been an exceptionally good thing. So in my view, I think a big chunk of people will be either at 5 or somewhere around 8. I mean, I do see a lot of people probably doing only one set, right? And maybe if you ask me what could be the score at 90 percentile, I think somebody was attempted anything between 8 or 9 questions, or 8 or 9 net correct. So I don't see it going beyond 27, 26, 27 for 90%.
90 percentile.
Sorry, 95 percentile.
Okay.
99 percentile. I'm sorry.
99 ना.
हाँ 99.
पर डर गया मतलब से.
हाँ नहीं, मैं कुछ सोच रहा था, कुछ और बोल रहा हूँ. So it is 99 percentile.
GP is in. You'll have to add him.
Yeah.
So 99 percentile, about not beyond 27.
मतलब दिस वाज अ पेपर टुडे DILR जिसमें मेरे को देख के लगा कि काश मेरे पेपर में जैवलिन होता. दैट काइंड ऑफ सेट इफ इट वाज देयर, मेरे लिए एक सेट छोड़ना बहुत आसान हो जाता. बट इट वाज it left me with no choice but to every set was a trap.
My take on this is that all the 4 sets, when you look at it, are doable. That is what makes it difficult. See, the problem is not that they are easy or difficult. Every set, it appears that yaar ye to kar hi sakte hain, and then you get stuck. Then you can try to solve it, and that is where the time goes away. Having said this, anybody who could have, for example, the COVID cases, I don't think it's difficult at all. Frankly, if you get it, you get all 5 correct. So Similarly, the computer science ratios, it is very lengthy. GP sir is going to say now that yaar, isko you should have seen from the choices. The games, uh, the round 1 to 8 games, I think it is very much possible that somebody can solve it because it is not very difficult. But yeah, there are various cases that are possible. The problem is that you will spend a lot of time because you need to write down all the cases once again. You need to uh, what is happening with BI papers, unfortunately, is that you have to take down the entire graph or the table down, and that is what is going to take away time, and that is when panic sets in. If you need at least one or two sets to be able to feel good about it. Here is my thought process: somebody in this particular paper, in this particular slot, would probably even crack 60 on 60, but there will be a lot of people with 40, 45. But at 99 you will still be about 27, 28, like we are talking about. That is the kind of a huge difference will come in. And let's 6 marks, 7 marks could be 50 percentile, but 10 marks could be 80 percentile, 85 percentile almost. Again, there are going to be chunks where with 4 5 marks, the percentile will go up by 30 35 percentile. That is where I think this particular uh, paper is, or this particular cat has made the difference in.
जिजो यू सेड आपके स्लॉट में एक सेट था जो सेट थियरी की तरह लग रहा था, बट 4 मिनट बाद आपको पता चला सेट थियरी नहीं है. अभी रुद्रनील फ्रॉम माय स्लॉट हैज कमेंटेड दैट इन अपना इन द फर्स्ट स्लॉट वो जो बॉयज एंड गर्ल्स सेट थियरी वाला था वेन डायग्राम, वो छोड़ देना था. तो मेरे को अभी पता चल रहा है वो वेन डायग्राम है.
No, Rudraneil has just now said that he has done 2.5 sets,
Yeah,
which is like pretty good according to me in slot one.
absolutely. Absolutely. And all of you, let me tell you one thing very, very clearly. See, most of you who are sitting in this session, attending it live, are serious aspirants, and most of you, what I hear from you is that DILR mein lagi hai. DILR le duba. So please understand one thing. This is a game of relative grading, sir.
It'll be very
If the paper
surprising,
was
sure.
difficult for everyone, you will get higher percentiles at lower scores. Don't worry. Okay, it's like electrical machines in electrical engineering. किसी के नंबर नहीं आने हैं तो 40 पे A+ आएगा. That kind of a paper it was. So don't worry. Even if you felt DILR, your scores are going to fall a little. All of us here feel कि boss, as compared to what happened in the last year, at all percentile ranges we may expect a dip. At least at the higher percentiles also, we may expect a dip of about one question in DILR also, 1 to 2 questions in DILR, varying from slot to slot.
Actually, GP is also there. GP, if you can comment whatever we discussed till now in DILR before we go to quant for all the 3 sets, all the 3 sections.
Sir, you are on mute.
Okay. I'll look like a broken record, but I have a complete disagreement with everyone that this was a difficult paper, at least slot 3. Okay. And I've been saying this for the last couple of hours to everyone. If you don't open the question paper and don't go through all the 4 sets, it is not the paper's fault, it is your fault. If you don't look at the questions and the choices, it is not the paper's fault, it is your fault. So it is not the paper. And I think in this paper, 3 were easily doable. That most people have not done 3, and 99 percentile will be at 26, 27, 28 marks is a reflection of the way people have taken the paper. It is not the inherent difficulty level of the paper. Okay? That blue, pink, male, female graph, all of us agree is easy. Now, who have we not told in every analysis session, every CDC, we would be shouting, please use the question paper button. You don't use it. Who should be blamed for that? Every mock we have talked about Jugaad solution, we have done DI LR sets where we have shown how to use choices. You don't use it, whose fault is it? Okay. At the end of 25th minute, I was down with 2 sets. I had done 2 sets complete. Okay. And this despite the fact first 7-8 minutes I had spent analyzing, going through all the 4 sets on the question paper button. For me, that blue, pink, male, female graph was the 4th set. That set, and for that graph I made the table also, because I was not very confident I'll be able to work, because you had to then go across. Okay, so I made the table, yet it goes over in 7-8 minutes. So my point is there are basic rules that one needs to follow. If you don't follow the process, you don't follow those basic rules, you can't blame the paper for that. हाँ, the good thing is सबने बर्बाद किया है पेपर तो स्कोर तो अच्छा आ जाएगा. People have not done well in this paper, so 10 questions, 30 marks will probably mean 99.2, 99.3 percentile. Okay, so that is there. And once the response sheet comes out, please check the computer science ratios wala data set. Okay, you will find two questions, first and the fifth question together solve the entire set for you. Okay, something which would have taken 15 minutes can easily be done in 8 to 10 minutes if you look at those two questions. I think the remaining three were all Tita, if I remember correctly. Okay. But the other part where I am in complete agreement with everyone, this was a paper in which if you are not willing to spend 12 to 15 minutes in a set, you will struggle. Okay. Okay. So the two sets of those COVID cases, and the game, both doable, but you should be willing to spend 15 minutes because cases have to be made and you cannot rush through those cases because else you'll make a mistake. Okay? And I'm sure in the morning and the afternoon slot also there would be at least one data set which could be solved with the help of choices.
Yeah, there was one. The one that I felt data was missing. उसमें से there were a couple of questions जहाँ जहाँ से आप data pick कर सकते थे. So that there were questions. But you sound to me like Surya Kumar Yadav batting on a different planet altogether, sir. No offenses to be taken. Right?
Yadav will take offense, not
Very
me.
happy. He'll be very happy to take that.
So that brings us to QA.
But Ravi, just to close this part, the students still have to take that. They still have to take IFT. The question paper button is there in those papers also. Please use it next time.
Yeah.
Whatever exam happens on TCS Ion Digital Zone, वहाँ पे आपको वो क्वेश्चन पेपर बटन रहता है mostly on all the papers. Right?
And one more thing I'd like to say, that sample paper, there was a pad, digital pad was mentioned. वो देख रहा था, it was not there in the actual paper. What was the sample paper they were giving? In the sample paper ऊपर एक छोटा सा ऐसा था, click the digital pad था एक. Actual वो sample paper में. I was checking where is it. It was not there. The actual one.
All right. So let's get to QA of slot 1. See, slot 1 QA, I felt, even if there were questions which were not very, very straightforward, or the breakup was not as we expect it to be. Let us say, we expect about, when we go to a paper like that, we expect about 50% of the questions to be from arithmetic. But this paper had a good mix of questions from arithmetic, algebra, and numbers questions that look like algebra also. However, if you can, these were not questions जो एकदम देख के लगेगा कि बन जाएगा, but ऐसे एकदम देख के लगेगा भी नहीं कि नहीं बनेगा. So these were the questions where you give 1 or 2 minutes of your time, you will get to the answers. None of the questions, barring 2 or 3 questions of arithmetic itself, none of the questions of algebra or geometry, or even for that matter, the modern math questions, PNC and set theory, they were not lengthy or not time consuming. That is where I feel this paper of quant in the slot 1 today, there were more questions that an average student could have solved as compared to what happens every year. Because if you go with a preconceived notion कि मैं यही questions करके आऊंगा, वो वाले question थे ही नहीं. So you had to fight your way through. Anyone who was ready to fight his way through, a good student, would have easily sailed across about 13-14 questions in this paper, which is, when we discussed about the third slot arcs and GP, what we discussed was the third slot 13-14 is a very, very good attempt. Anything beyond 13-14 questions would be almost god level in this paper. But I felt sailing through 13-14 questions in quant in slot 1 was not difficult. So the average attempt rate itself would be somewhere, for people who are eyeing that 95 to 99 percentile, people would have attempted those 14 to 16 to 17 questions in this paper. So that was the kind of paper that quantitative ability offered in the first slot in this year's CAT. However, it comes with a caveat. The caveat being arithmetic questions. Five questions out of eight of those arithmetic were straightforward. For three of the questions, you would have to work your way around. The same was true for algebra also. Three, four questions were straightforward, but there were traps in a couple of questions. Like I fell for a legit trap. I felt कि एक answer null set and or कुछ होगा. But I came to know when I was doing that answer key session that there was one data point I missed in that question. It was given that A, B, and C are natural numbers, so the answer should be an empty set. So there were traps here and there, but I think getting those 12 to 13 questions net correct in this paper was not difficult, and hence I would say 36 to 30, 35 to 37 marks. That is the range where I guess the 99th percentile will be for a raw score in slot 1 in quant.
Jijo, your
You
take
say
on
you saying is what 30? What how many marks you said for
I'm saying
slot one?
slot 1, I am saying 35 to 37. That
So
should
last
be
year,
around 12 to 13. Last year it was 34 for the 99th percentile. It will be one
34
question.
was
Slot 1 was one question easier for
scaled score, right?
what?
34 was a scaled score after all the three.
Correct.
hmm, I get,
So
yeah.
we are talking about the raw score of slot 1, which will be 36.
Yeah. Raw score of slot 1 36 should get you the 99th percentile.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's actually very sort of difficult to sort of compare between slots, but my sense is so when you look at the paper, you had almost equal weightage of arithmetic and algebra, and my sense was that those students who are arithmetic only attitude uh, would have probably struggled because you did not get all the arithmetic question to be easy. They were up to my feeling was out of this nine question, about four was manageable. Another five you had to fight to get the sort of answer to this question. Coming to algebra, the story is still the same. So some of the algebra questions had natural. Some of the algebra question was straightforward. Some of the algebra question was painful. Uh, what I also found was there were lot many questions actually that looked very deadly. Uh, but if you know the concept, if you know the basic concept, you could have that was easy. So it was kind of testing. So it was one of those question which is like wow. Once you crack it, it's like wow, because the question was looking difficult, but the answer was there to take him. So I don't see it was what was it? It was. Uh, Math is always very tricky when it comes to the cat. Every year you have got different flavor of maths. Uh, but what I can one say is that at least there is some sort of consistency with respect to three slots in terms of how the questions were created, and that consistency was there. Therefore, I agree with you suggesting that my feeling is that about 10, uh, 10, 11 questions is what somebody could have got. If somebody could have got about 50% of the question net correct here, that to me in this slot would have been a 99 percentile, is my feeling for this slot. It was like I was saying that the questions required somebody to spend that 1 or 2 minutes to think on the particular question. And if it was GP, I felt there'll be a lot of jugaad to tha bahut sara. But applying jugaad is a different story, no.
And I think
Not everybody.
slot both, the story is true for both the first and the second slots,
So so
Jijo.
what-
That
so so, so,
these
so
were
what,
two papers where
what,
GP would have been very happy.
so one of the thing is that one of the thing that is been almost every single mock that sort of the approach has been told, but somebody to get the approach in their head or their heart, they had to work on every single test. If they had done it, there were a lot many things for the taking. If they have not, then it would have been a little more painful. So, so yes, none of the questions create an unnecessary challenge. It's just that many of these questions required to give about a couple of minutes to get the answer. So I would say that it was not easy, not difficult. So kind of a moderate is probably the easy way to put on this paper. 50 percentage would 50 percentage mark should get cross the 99 percentile thereabout. It could be either 11 or it could be 12. It could be 33 marks or 36 marks. That I'm not sure, but thereabout about 50 percentage net marks would be about 99 percentile is my feeling in this test. And I also believe the cutoff will be about 5. I think 85th percentile will be about somebody can do about 5 questions. Should be able to get the cutoff of the session. That's my belief. 5 and 11, 12.
Slot 3.
Shivko, you'll go. I think you are on mute.
Yeah, slot 3, I think the same thing. When it came to algebra and arithmetic, I mean, arithmetic, the over dependence on arithmetic was something that I did expect to that would go down. But uh, I feel there are quite a few questions. So, see, for example, uh, I attempted about I think 16 or 17, right? And no, when you look at the questions, there were a few questions which took a lot of time. So I went in a sequential way, and in fact, I didn't see the last 3-4 questions. So I said कि मेरे I underestimated and assuming कि हो जाएगा सब कुछ, right? So and towards the last, there were some questions where we had to spend a lot of time. There are some questions that were unnecessarily asking you to do more than what is needed. Those two quadratic equations. I mean वो बिल्कुल वो घिसाने वाले काम है. Remember the arcs, those two questions? Huh?
One question, actually, quadratic equations that when the roots were the surds, 3 plus 2 root 2 and 2 root 3
Huh.
and 4. That was very straightforward, actually, if you ask me.
It is straightforward, but it is like
You
it
don't-
is not conceptually difficult, but वो कह रहा है कि अच्छा ये उसको मार्क्स 3 मार्क्स लेने के लिए तुमको 4 कदम चलना पड़ेगा, right? So it's almost like forcibly making you to do it. So conceptually, I didn't come across any question where, I mean, the idea doesn't strike you, but even if the idea strikes you, you will have to walk that few miles more. So that I think was the essence of this paper. uh, and mm, so I feel for somebody who was at his best in terms of the pace at which he or she was doing, because I am sure that a lot of people must have been carrying this, I screwed up my uh, LRDI. I did only one set or one and a half set. I am sure that burden a lot of people must have carried to their quant. It could have also slowed them down a little bit. So I feel if somebody was a little bindas and done it, I think 12 to 13 would have been a very good attempt. Anything beyond 15 is a fantastic attempt.
I would like to set certain things straight about lots of people saying arithmetic has reduced. If you look at CAT 2021, the first slot had 11 questions in arithmetic, second slot 9, and the third slot 11. So the expectation was always between 9 and 11. And even if you look at this slot, it's been 9, 9, and 9. But actually, what we are saying in slot 3, arithmetic 9 is actually 10, because at equations based, there are two equations. One is quadratic equation, one is a very simple equation which can actually be an arithmetic. In that sense, there are 10 questions. So there is not really a reduction. It's just that it has been exactly the same. The problem with slot 1 was there was no time and work, whereas in time and work in slot 3 made it a little easier. Time, speed, and distance also, both the questions were straightforward. Simple interest was easy. That way, 5-6 questions were easy. Problem, which I'm sure you will say, and GP will come back and say, that the rest of the questions were boring and lengthy. And when they were boring and lengthy, it is you don't get the momentum in an exam. When you don't get a momentum in exam, you will not be able to get a huge scores in general. And that's where I think 33 marks, 30 marks, or best cases 33 marks, which will be your 99 percentile in quant in slot 3 for quant.
Is there any factor like this coming into play after the LRDI section in slot 3 coming to this quant would have made it much more difficult?
I don't know. I strongly believe, like GP keeps saying, I don't think we should bother about what happened in the previous section. Having said that, yes, uh, uh, anybody who has done that bar graph, the male female pink bar graph, would be doing quite better, I guess. But anybody missed that and tried to do the other three sets would have been a nightmare, and quant would have also gone for a toss.
I think this year Cat has brought back all those Undertakers back from the grave. There was a question of coordinate geometry in my paper. There was a greatest integer function question. There was a what escalators in slot 3.
Yeah.
These
So
are questions that they
Very easy, actually, if you ask me. That
I
question.
first
these, all
for
the
the
three
first,
questions, coordinate geometry, the greatest integer I am saying, were also very easy in the first slot. But the only point is, ये coordinate geometry है बोल के छोड़ देता है, greatest integer है बोल के छोड़ देता है, वैसे escalator बोल के छोड़ देता है लोग.
मेरा slot में first time I saw sin theta cos theta. I don't know when was the
Sin
last time
theta
I
cos
saw.
theta.
I
So,
saw.
so all of these topics which were once considered dead are back, guys.
For
I
my
will answer
jugad,
the question.
for my jugad, I have what was zero? Sin zero was zero, cos zero. Jugad के लिए
Once again, also, you people said that arithmetic will be enough. And I'm saying, even now, your local guide, whoever you are, arithmetic would have been still enough to get that 90 plus percentile, even now.
No, ask, look at this way. Time and work, two questions were doable. Easy questions, both of them. Time, speed, distance, again the same. Simple interest ratios. So those 9 questions of arithmetic, all 9 were doable.
At
Okay.
least 6 would have been easily doable for everybody who has gone through arithmetic GP.
Then,
That would
then that
be
so-called number system question of LCM HCF again was doable. So
correct.
that okay, and then modern math जो PNC लिखा मुझे पता नहीं चला था वो PNC है मैंने तो केसेस लिख के ऐड की आंसर निकाल दिया था.
बस वही है पीएनसी.
हाँ, मैं वही बोल
PNC
रहा हूँ
वही
मुझे
होता
नहीं
है,
मालूम
sir.
क्या ना मैं तो which is why with you when you were discussing earlier one question of PNC I was racking my brain यार मेरे को दिखा क्यों नहीं PNC. Okay?
बस
So arithmetic would still be enough because if you look at these 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 questions of arithmetic, I think all 9 were doable. Even if you spend 3 minutes per question, you've got 27 marks in 27 minutes, and that would have been, I would feel, maybe close to 95 percentile.
98 percentile GP. I'm sticking my neck out on that.
I won't be
27
surprised.
between
I
95,
won't be
97.
surprised because in this paper, going beyond 12, 13 questions for 99 percentile would be a stretch. I think 99 percentile is close to 32 marks.
33. Yep.
I think what you are saying is I totally agree. थोड़ा मेहनत तो करवाया था slot 1 में भी. See, for example, for all you know, they could have asked a question that how many natural number solutions are there for a plus b plus c plus d equal to 10. But what did they ask? They asked in how many ways can 20 identical balls be distributed to 4 people such that each of them gets some balls, but all of them get even number of balls. मतलब इट्स द सेम क्वेश्चन, बस वो स्ट्राइक करने को आपको शुरू का 1 मिनट चला जाएगा, वो एक बार स्ट्राइक कर दिया देन इट इज अ 30-second क्वेश्चन. So,
But by the way, I don't know who told arithmetic was enough. I never told. In my mind, it is never. Then what will be that? Arithmetic was.
I vouch for
Also,
geometry
also
always.
if I look at Gijo, if I look at from the normal arithmetic, I would say this is -1.
Okay.
Only out of 22, I would expect about 10 questions of arithmetic. Okay, on the higher. So to me, it is -1. So not a big deal, frankly.
And
Arithmetic would be enough to clear cutoff. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. And arithmetic plus algebra out of 22, I would expect about 15, 16. That is bang on. So to me, it is not an issue at all that arithmetic कम है मैं ये नहीं बोलूंगा. To me, the issue is algebra थोड़ा मेहनत वाला था. यानी वो काम करवा रहा था थोड़ा सा extra.
so that is what the overall slot 3 comparison in comparison with slot 1 and slot 2 looks like. The overall comparison, we feel that the 99th percentile for slot 3 overall will be somewhere around 80, 94, 95 marks itself. It should be 66, not 76, what is there on the screen. Pardon me for that. But the overall score should be overall 99th percentile in slot 3 is estimated to be a little lesser than 95 marks, while in slot 1 as well as in slot 2, you in slot 1 actually you can expect it in the range of 95 to 97. Slot 2 may end up becoming probably one more question easier than what slot 1 was in terms of the overall paper, and the expected scores at 99 percentile for each of the sections is also mentioned on this slide over here.
Just a small detour. Okay, something
Uh,
I remembered suddenly something. Remember, Shivku, in one of the CDCs, you deliberately cut down the number of questions of arithmetic. And I remember while doing the analysis, the conversation was, "This is not CAD. What the hell are you doing?" Okay, when during that analysis we said that if, let's say, the paper does not have arithmetic or less number of arithmetic, how will you handle that's something that we want to do. We don't, that this is a possibility, and people said no. Now the reality is this, then you come and tell me we never told you. And this is
No, I still feel, Jijo, that 9 questions was the
I'm, I'm,
bare
I'm,
minimum every
I'm,
time we
I'm, I'm,
said.
I'm saying 9 questions is too much. First of all, arithmetic should not be this much in the first place. I missed the numbers. You once upon a time. This I'm saying that 9 is still very high for arithmetic. The percentage of out of 22 questions, you have got 9 questions, 8 questions arithmetic. That percentage is still very high compared to, let's say, two-digit number last year. That's where that perception is happening. So somebody who's done well in arithmetic should have done all the 8 questions. It's not like they were difficult to handle.
No,
They were,
even that
uh,
paper, Jijo, we had
uh,
about 8 or 9 questions of arithmetic. Only thing is, it was not the conventional सीधा सीधा करने वाला नहीं था.
yeah.
तो उसमें थोड़ा मेहनत करना वाले
Just
so
saying.
I think somebody said कि ऐसे this is going to be a JEE वाला paper.
All that saying, all this preparation. I think all this preparation, people become soothsayer and experts on what they know about what is going to happen. So the only learning that I will want to tell everyone, when you look at what is going to happen in ZAT or IFT, when you take forward the preparation in terms of other tests, right? Just focus on the skill set that is needed to ace the test. Focus on those things and not sort of be predicting that this is going to be, that is going to be. Let the mock give you different opportunities for you to explore and crack the examination. Whatever happened with this test happened with the test. I think that we have to, at this point in time, move on. If and I also believe that somebody who knows that they have cracked the test GP, I believe that they should start thinking immediately about preparing for the second stage.
Not,
That
not,
so
you know, not only crack the test, if you
uh,
think you are likely to get an interview call from an institute that you're comfortable with. But
correct.
if you think that that IMI, IMT are institute that I would be happy to join, and I'm likely to be around 93, 94 percentile, I would start preparing for GD interviews immediately. So if I think I will get calls from the institutes, I would be happy joining. I don't think there's any point wasting time. Start preparing along with your CAT, along with your ZAT IFT preparation. Okay. The reason also is that, okay, actually it is the same DILR story there also. You are somewhat comfortable with quant and English because you have done maths and English since your childhood. DILR was a new kid on the block, and you struggle with it. Now DILR is an extension of maths for all practical purposes, of statistics for all practical purposes. Group discussion interview or interview preparation is completely new. And if you delay it, you are likely to struggle. And once you reach the interview stage, it does not matter what your CAT score is. We have seen people with 100 percentile getting rejected. So don't think if you get a high percentile, you will get selected definitely. You still need to do very well in the interview to get selected.
DILR इज
GP, I
कम्प्लीटली
have
न्यू
a
वाला
take
अभी नहीं समझेगा सर, एक बार डिसीजन
on
मेकिंग देखेंगे तो उसके बाद पूरा क्लैरिटी आ जाएगा इनको.
Ravi, I have a different take from GP. GP is saying, if you think you can get a 93 or so, start preparing for GD and interviews. My answer is, bhai, you have no clue whether you have done it well or not. Everybody in the chat is saying they have done bad. For all you know, you will actually do better. And when you get it pleasantly surprised with a good percentile and even a call from an IIM or some of the top institutes, then you can't be sitting and crying saying that, hey boss, मैंने कुछ किया नहीं है, start नहीं किया है. So GB, that's exactly the point. I think people will get calls, people will get better percentiles despite their today's thinking that they have not done well, because everybody thinks that they have not done as well as they ought to have at least. But when the real person not getting
that's a very positive thing, ना. सबको लगता है मेरा पेपर खराब हुआ तो किसी का पेपर खराब नहीं है.
yeah, and that makes me think that whether or not you prepare for your ZATs and the IIFTs of the world, I think a parallel prep for your interview, I think, is very much important at this stage.
Now the interview they're going to ask what do you did, your questions from graduation. I remember people studying entire graduation once again. It's not a
Yep.
sort of it's. I know people telling me that they had prepared much more for interview prep than they prepare for CAT. So that story is happening. I'm hoping and wishing that you will take that pain. That pain happens to you. That is our prayer. And I think what is absolutely important is that we have got battles. One war is done. Other battles to fight. Continue the fight. I think you have to wake up, get up. There are a lot of examinations immediately happening, right? Abhi, 2 weeks my IFT, then we have that. Then we have other exams.
Yes, everything, yeah, quite a lot of them. But they cannot afford to not do a parallel preparation. What GP is saying.
Absolutely.
And somebody was asking, response sheet kab aata hai? Last 2 years, response sheet was released on
8th of December.
Yeah.
So it could be 7th of December, one day early. Last year, 28th.
And we have opened that analysis side. No, people can post something their predicted scores now.
Yeah.
And
In fact, don't make sure that you guys give your scores, your expected attempts and expected scores, so that we will come back with a predicted percentile for you. Once again, GP, I think I'll take it up here. We have over the last few years, even though we do not know what the questions that you have done or the marks that you will actually get, by your expectations itself, by looking at what you have done in the CDCs and the prime marks, we will be able to predict what possible percentile you can get. And it'll be uncanny when you see that the real percentile that you get and the predictor that CL comes out with will be very, very close. So do make sure. And for that to be correct, please go to that score percentile predictor, give your attempts and expected corrects, and we will come back with you a very, very close CAT percentile that you may probably get.
And in fact, when your response sheet comes out, we will be calculating. We'll be also releasing a site where you can relaunching it, where you can submit your response sheet. The greater the number of data greater the amount of data we have, more accurate our model will be in terms of giving you the percentile predictions. And over the last 3 years, as Aksar has mentioned, we have been absolutely spot on. So I think that concludes what.
Jijo, you and I have a session at 11 now.
Yeah.
Okay, Ravi, ये PPT भेज दोगे मुझे और जीजो को?
किसके लिए सेशन है?
We are the celebrities. We are going different places.
I certainly realized that मैं सोचा था जाके सो जाऊंगा, but I suddenly realized there's a session at 11 also for both of us.
नहीं मेरे पास एक PPT है GP.
हाँ नहीं, मैं कहा all the data is here ना, that is why we'll need it.
Yeah, मैंने कॉपी कर लिया वो डेटा.
ठीक है तो. Then it is fine.
The breakfast broadcast, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks all of you, and see you in the next analysis whenever it happens. All the very best for your preparations too, all of you. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Good night. All the best.
Guys, all the best. Bye.